A stunning announcement yesterday from Secretary of Transportation and Acting Director Administrator of NASA, Sean Duffy. He says that we're going back to the moon, and when we're there, we're going to build a nuclear power station. I'm going to show you that in a minute, and then I'm going to show you the reaction from the media, the absolutely insane reaction from environmental wackos who apparently think that a nuclear power plant on the moon is in some way going to endanger all of our lives or something, because the last thing you want is radiation in space. Wait a second. Yeah, I'm sure I'm wrong about that, but I heard once that it's already pretty full of radiation, without having an atmosphere to filter out the sun's rays and all the. I'm sure I'm wrong about that. All right, here's Sean Duffy making the big announcement yesterday.
In a race to the moon, in a race with China to the moon, and to have a base on the moon, we need energy. And some of the key locations on the moon, we're going to get solar power, but this fission technology is critically important. And so we've spent hundreds of $millions studying, can we do it? We are now going to move beyond studying, and we have given direction to go, let's start to deploy our technology to move to actually make this a reality. And I think the stat we have is it's a 100 kilowatt output. That's the same amount of energy a 2,000 square foot home uses every 3.5 days. So we're not talking about massive technology. We're not launching this live. That's obviously, if you have any questions about that, no, we're not launching it live. But again, energy is important. And if we're going to be able to sustain life on the moon to then go to Mars, this technology is critically important. And I would just note that we're behind, right? If we're going to engage in the race to the moon and the race to Mars, we have to get our act together. We have to marshal all of our resources, all of our focus on going to the moon, which is what we're going to do. And again, there's a lot of things that NASA does, and a lot of people love a lot of the things that NASA does. But this is about space exploration, and this is about this next phase. A lot of people don't know even what Artemis is. Everyone knew what Apollo was. We all knew, the whole world knew what Apollo was. We were going to the moon. Artemis is we're going back. So in the first part of next year, we are going to send Artemis 2 out. Met the 4 astronauts. They're fantastic. We're going to go out around the moon and come back. Artemis 3, we are going to go back to the moon. We're going to land. The longest time we've spent in the past was 3 days. We're going to stay for 6 days. And then after that, we're able to start shipping our assets to the moon unmanned. And we'll have those assets there as our astronauts arrive and are able to build a base. But this is critically important. There's a certain part of the moon that everyone knows is the best. We have ice there. We have sunlight there. We want to get there first and claim that for America.
All right. So this is very cool stuff. And yes, Artemis 3, which is scheduled, I believe, in 2028, will return Americans to the moon and really permanently, it appears, as we are going to set up a base. If we are going to venture out into further space exploration, including the concept of potentially reaching Mars, you're going to need a base on the moon. Everybody seems to recognize that. It's a lot easier to launch from the moon than it is from the planet Earth, because you don't have the same kind of resistance and gravitational pull and all that jazz. And I'm not a scientist. I don't know all of it. But here's the thing. Reaction to this announcement yesterday was absolutely Looney Tunes from the media and from the left. They, of course, want to think the worst of the Trump administration and Secretary Duffy. I assure you, if Joe Biden had announced this, they would be positively orgasmic. They would already be giving the Nobel Prize. Or, God forbid, Kamala Harris as president of the United States. So let's turn this morning to CBS when they brought out this guy. Trump-hating, conservative-hating, religion-hating, Christian-hating atheist Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is a television celebrity and apparently has some sort of degree in the sciences. So what's his reaction to this?
Isn't there a reality where this planet is not going to be able to sustain us for the long term, and we're going to have to find elsewhere?
Well, okay, by sane estimates, it looks like our population will level off at about 10 billion. But if we want to keep growing a population, or if we want to live forever, all right, we're going to need another planet.
So is that the moon? Because I
don't want to live on the moon.
Right? Is it will it serve as a functional life source eventually for human beings? And B, we know how the age of colonialism worked on this planet. Should we be trying to colonize and saying that there's a keep out zone that not other countries can participate in having?
Well, the real problem with the colonization history in Western civilization is that there were people already there, right? There are no moon beings that were displaced.
As far as we know. As far as we know.
or Martians. I'm just saying the moon and Mars, yes, they would be the next place you might put people, but I don't see it as it makes a good headline and clickbait, but I don't see it as a realistic way to deal with our overpopulation or overconsumption. So then,
is there
resources.
a need?
I just love this so much on multiple levels. Oh, I like it's really good clickbait, but other than that, by the way, did it work? Did it? Are you still with us? Yes, it worked. Okay. No, it's not clickbait. Obviously, this is very real stuff. Have you noticed that the same people who tell us that we only have 5 years left on this planet, we're ruining this planet, we're destroying this planet, and then individuals who are like saying with a spirit for exploration, and this guy with the overpopulation, they hate human beings. So what are the solutions? Is, all right, fine. You think we're ruining this planet. You think that we're overpopulated. You think there's not enough room or resources. Hey, I got an idea. How about we start exploring other planets? We go to other places. No, that's not a realistic option. Space exploration has always been something that human beings have been able to dream about when it's set it up as a quest or a challenge, as we did in the 60s to reach the moon. The types of additional scientific discoveries in trying to figure out that problem are astronomically huge. The same thing with the ongoing space program all through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. The things that we were able to achieve to better our lives here because we were solving problems through our space program are absolutely, you can't even count them. We've been able to advance the technology that we're using right now so that you and I can communicate the way that we are right now is a result of our quest for space and higher achievement in the sciences. So it takes all of these experts in science to actually poo-poo the idea of scientific advancement. You would think that Neil deGrasse Tyson would be on board, but no, of course he's not. By the way, I don't know if you caught it or not, but my favorite moment here, if I can just show you again, because people whose job it is to sit at a table and look pretty in front of a camera and read teleprompters, they're not very smart. Did you catch this?
But if we want to keep growing a population, or if we want to live forever, all right, we're going to need another planet.
So is that the moon? Because we're
going to need another planet. Oh, so the moon? The moon is not a planet. The moon is not a planet. Okay, that's fine. When you really want to fool your audience, when you really want to perpetuate a fraud, when you really want to feed them a bunch of misinformation about life here on this planet when it comes to the environment or overpopulation or whatever, Neil deGrasse Tyson, that's small potatoes. That's not really going to get the job done, right? You want this guy. That's right. Bill Nye, the science gay. He was on with, I'm sorry, what? Oh, I apologize. It's Bill Nye, the science guy. It's a simple mistake. He was on with Jen Psaki talking about science. Or was he? I don't know. Take a look at this clip. You might be able to pick it up better than I did. I had to watch it a few times, but apparently this is less about science and more about politics and elections and getting out the vote for Democrats. But he's a science guy, I promise.
And look, you guys, everybody, I used to work in the oil industry. People forget I used to work in the oil patch in West Texas. And we just can't do it anymore. I mean, okay, so the sooner we stop doing it, the better. And of course, for us in the United States, right now, we're having this very strong heat dome. It's very hot weather, which is going to affect agriculture, which will affect everybody's prices, the price of your food in the grocery store. And what we don't want is to have it be so far along, it's very, very difficult to reverse. So everybody pay attention and vote. And I'll just say that this idea that whatever the oil and gas industry tells people in the administration is true is probably wrong. And so just don't vote for him anymore. And when you get a chance, let's get him out of office.
There you go. Well, I mean, listen, when you're Bill Nye, you're in the business of getting booked on television. That's what he does. It's how he pays the bills. He needs to be on TV. And you get booked on television, certainly on cable news, certainly on MSNBC, by promoting Democrats and, even better, opposing Republicans. Jen Psaki is the news host there. Yeah, the news host. That's right, Jen Psaki, former spokesperson for John Kerry and Barack Obama and Joe Biden. But now she's a journalist. She booked Bill Nye to say exactly that. Don't listen to the oil industry. Don't vote for anyone who agrees with the oil industry. Next time you get a chance, vote for anybody but a Republican, because science. I think my favorite reaction was this one from Jen Psaki. Take a look at her face. There it is. That was the payoff. But that was Bill Nye talking about how horrible our planet is and how it's irreversible. But just the other day, he was on CNN saying something very different. No, I'm kidding. He was saying the exact same thing.
The administration is trying to use these rules or laws, which were clearly, in my opinion, clearly never intended to be used this way, to derail the will of Congress. And so they're using these, apparently they're planning to use this business of impoundment of funds and this extraordinary new legal theory, pocket rescission. And there's no such thing, they're making it up. And the irony is that the communities that are going to be most affected by curtailing public broadcasting are the rural communities that voted for this administration. And I just, as one example, I have met countless people, that is to say, more people than I can count, who came to this country from other parts of the world and tell me that they learned to speak English by watching public broadcasting, by watching my show, by watching Sesame Street. And one of the ideas of this administration, which is nominally quite reasonable, is to make English the official language. Well, if you want people to learn English, you want to have public broadcasting. This is just an ironic mess up on their part.
There you go. Get me the science guy to talk about public broadcasting, because he's a science guy. No, he's a political hack and an actor with a bow tie. But if you do want to find out what's going on with the Environmental Protection Agency and some of the decisions that have been made over the last several decades that strangle businesses in this country and the oil and gas industry in this country and keep any sort of robust development in the economy happening, which was sort of the plan. If you're a socialist, you don't want capitalism to work. You don't want the free markets to work. You don't want industry to work. Then people won't want to turn to socialism. So you use the fears of climate change to put a stranglehold on all of that progress. Well, let's bring in our new guy at EPA, Lee Zeldin, and see what he has to say about it. Maybe we can actually fix what's been broken.
Do you accept the overwhelming scientific consensus that these greenhouse gas emissions are the biggest drivers of man-made climate change?
Well, it's great to be on with you. First, it's worth pointing out that all 8 or so images that you just posted on the screen have nothing to do with this week's announcement. What was the 2009 endangerment finding had to do was with regards to mobile sources vehicles. This week's proposal to rescind the 2009 endangerment finding was with regards to mobile sources vehicles. CNN's been using a lot of photos where they show smokestacks of stationary sources like power plants. That's not what we proposed. Now, going back to 2009, the science that they were reviewing included both optimistic to pessimistic scenarios. To reach the 2009 endangerment finding, they relied on the most pessimistic views of the science. The great news is that a lot of the pessimistic views of the science in 2009 that was being assumed ended up not panning out. Hey, that's great. We can rely on 2025 facts as opposed to 2009 bad assumptions. The other thing, too, is that at EPA, we don't just get to creatively make the law whatever we want it to be. The Supreme Court ruled in Loper Bright, overturning the Chevron doctrine, West Virginia versus EPA, Michigan versus EPA, that agencies like the EPA can't just use vague language in statute and try to make it be whatever we want it to be. The major policy doctrine also says that when you're going to reach something like an endangerment finding and then have trillions of dollars of regulation, that's something that should be decided by our elected members of Congress in passing statute.
That's right. Lee Zeldin is very smart. He understands the law. He understands the issue, and he understands how to call the media out in their lies and hypocrisy. That's why, well, that's why you see the look on the face of the teleprompter reader for CNN. Yeah, before they brought him on to talk about the EPA's decision to no longer regulate carbon dioxide emissions as a pollutant, they showed pictures of factories and dirty air being shot out through the smokestacks, you know, making you cough and wheeze and turning your eyes bloodshot. And that's not carbon dioxide, you morons. Do you know what carbon dioxide is? Here, let me give you a quick example of carbon dioxide. That's carbon dioxide. You're breathing it out every single day. And if you live in an area with plants in your room or trees outside, they're sucking it in because they love it. Carbon dioxide is plant food. But as you just heard, in 2009, the Obama administration and their EPA, in the first year he was in office, decided to make carbon dioxide a pollutant. That's right. What you are literally breathing out of your nose and mouth is a pollutant, according to Barack Obama and his socialists at the EPA. And now, after 16 years, it's been reversed. Why? Well, as you just heard from Lee Zeldin, because of facts. Because they made that determination in 2009 with the worst case scenarios of what would happen to our planet if we don't do something about carbon dioxide. And none of those things occurred. And it's not because the EPA regulated carbon dioxide, because the carbon emissions are still happening. You know why? Because they're happening in China and in India and third world nations that aren't controlled by the EPA. If anything, the carbon emissions that the United States has been putting out are actually reduced, not because of the EPA regulating carbon dioxide, but because of efficiency in manufacturing standards in our country. That's why. The idea that your breath is a pollutant was always offensive to anybody who looks at this story realistically. The reason the EPA did that is because they wanted a power grab. Listen, if you, through your representatives, decide that you want to regulate carbon dioxide as a pollutant, I've got an idea. Do it the old-fashioned way. Pass a law. Not some no-name, literally anonymous bureaucrat working at the EPA making that decision, affecting our economy for the last 16 years. Can you tell me the person who regulated carbon dioxide as a pollutant? Can you? You see, that's the problem, because you never voted for that person. Unless you want to call Barack Obama the person responsible for it. So there's Lee Zeldin bringing facts to the table, bringing the law to the table, and bringing good news to the table. All of those horrible things they've been telling us about what will happen if we don't end our industries in this country and end carbon emissions. If everyone just stopped breathing, we'd be better off, apparently. None of those things happened. And they never do they? I mean, here's a good example. Bernie Sanders, running for president in 2020, made this proclamation.
What I tell these workers is that the scientists are telling us that if we don't act incredibly boldly within the next 6-7 years, there will be irreparable damage done, not just to Nevada, not just to Vermont or Massachusetts, but to the entire world. Joe said it right. This is an existential threat. You know what that means, Chuck? That means we're fighting for the future of this planet. And the Green New Deal that I support, by the way, will create up to 20 million good-paying jobs as we move our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy.
There you go. We got 6, maybe 7 years. That's what the scientists are telling us. All right, so let's recap, shall we? Sean Duffy announced for NASA yesterday that we are going back to the moon, and the Artemis 3 program will begin the process of building a nuclear reactor on the moon, because we're going to have energy on the moon for our base and for our further space exploration. We had scientists jump in front of the camera saying this is an outrageous, horrible idea, and oh gosh, what can go wrong having a nuclear reactor on the moon? That'll be awful. We don't want radiation in space, not pointing out the fact that radiation already exists in space in spades right now. It's already there, so don't worry about it. And you had the entire weaving and wandering story about how we're ruining our planet right here. The only solution is not to find alternative scientific reactions or responses to carbon emissions or any other problem that you might think we might be having, and certainly not to explore other planets. No. The only possible solution is for everybody to stop breathing, and that will, by the way, also help the overpopulation problem. And oh, by the way, we only have 5 or 6 years, they've been saying, for the last 30 years. All right, so that's the recap, except for this. We actually had a sane and rational news report on the story yesterday about Sean Duffy sending us to the moon again. And I just want to point out that this story, coming from News Nation, we attack the media a lot. We attack the fact that they're all biased. We attack the fact that they lie to you. We attack the fact that they leave out critically important stories. These guys actually did a good job, and I like to celebrate that whenever I see it, because in all of the coverage, they left out a key element of this story. Oh, it's a new space race. It's a new space race. They're leaving out who we're racing against. Oh, this is crazy that NASA under Sean Duffy and Donald Trump are now they're just trying to distract you from Epstein, after all. They're going to the moon to build a nuclear reactor. That's a terrible idea. Okay, fine. You may think it's a terrible idea. But it is a race, because there's another country who has already announced that they're going to do it. China. And they're doing it in partnership with Russia. You see, it's only a space race if you're racing against someone. So the question is not, should we go to the moon and build a nuclear reactor? The question is, who should get there first and do it? Here's the news report, and I think it's worth watching.
Space race is going nuclear. Interim NASA Administrator and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy expected to announce a fast-track plan to deploy a nuclear reactor to the moon by 2030. That's 5 years before China and Russia's joint plan to do the very same thing. Mills Hayes is here with those details. Okay, Mills, give us the latest, and also what's at stake with being the first.
Good morning, Marky. Details still very limited right now. Politico reporting that this is something that's been discussed before, but this new directive would set a firm timeline for the first time. The United States is one step closer to extended stays on the moon and to space exploration even beyond. Politico is reporting that Secretary Sean Duffy is going to announce plans to build a nuclear reactor on the moon. NASA had been working towards having a 40-kilowatt reactor on the moon, but Duffy's plan is reportedly to get proposals for a 100-kilowatt reactor to launch by 2030.
Well, having nuclear power in space is really important for any human exploration beyond low Earth orbit, because the moon has 2 weeks of day, but then it has 2 weeks of night. So you can't have solar power on the moon unless you have some really huge batteries, right? Because you need a battery at nighttime, like we have on the space station.
It's been over 50 years since an American set foot on the moon, and this project would allow for more people to stay on the moon longer. A power source on the moon not only gives the U.S. a lunar foothold, it becomes a testing ground for exploration further than the moon. Duffy's timeline is years ahead of a reported Chinese and Russian mission to also build a nuclear plant on the moon.
China would love nothing more than to beat us. If they can beat us to the moon, that sends a very powerful visceral signal to all of humanity that China's ahead of America. So they want to beat us to the moon. And if they win this next space race, then a lot of people are going to think, well, maybe that authoritarian system isn't so bad. So it's important that America not fall behind this race, because the things we do on the moon are going to dramatically impact the things that happen here on Earth to the 8 billion of us that are down here on the planet.
The announcement comes amid NASA's downsizing. About 20% of NASA's employees opted to leave the agency as part of DOGE's referred resignation and voluntary departure program. Reportedly, the announcement will require NASA to appoint someone to lead the project and give those companies that are interested 60 days to submit their proposal.
There you go. One other element that was left out of that report, other than that, a very solid, very fact-oriented report and a fair report that gives you all the information and context. And it was this. Yes, it's a space race between us and China, China partnering with Russia. What could go wrong there? They want to get to the moon. They want to build a nuclear reactor on the moon. They want to have an unlimited power source on the moon for whatever it is they want to do. And if they get there first, they will claim it for their own. They're not going to share, and they're not going to allow us to go there. They're going to do whatever it takes to stop us. So yeah, it's something that we need to do. And you would think that all of those scientists and all of the people who are observing this story and commenting on this story in the last 24 hours would point that out. But they don't, because they actually don't like science unless it meets their political goals. They don't like the news. They don't like the truth. And ultimately, they're not rooting for America.